what the fuck happened to Otis? What the fuck is happening to wrestling? All right, motherfucks? Let's be real, all right? Part of this we can attribute to the coronavirus. Oh, also, before I forget, what up, cocks? You know what I'm saying? A lot of this can be attributed to coronavirus, but there is no excuse for shitty booking. Now, along with coronavirus, WWE is in a shitty position in terms of their talent, right? Like, critical players like Roman Reigns aren't around. Cena obviously isn't around. Edge came back and he got injured, so he's not around. So there is a severe lack of main event talent, right? That's kind of the problem. Now, this could be a good thing. You know, this could be a moment to push a new generation of superstars into the main event. I'm talking about people like Cesaro, motherfucks. Jeff Hardy. Now, I understand. Neither Cesaro nor Jeff Hardy are a new generation, but they are new, fresh faces in the main event scene. There are no main eventers. Like, the only main eventer around is Randy Orton. Everyone else is a mid-card jobber. All right, motherfuckers? Everyone. Like, who else is a main eventer? You know? Braun Strowman is not a main eventer, let's be real. Bray Wyatt sucks ass. He's not a main eventer. Who else is left? Who else is left? Drew McIntyre, you might say? No, fam. This guy is having one of the worst title reigns of all time. Not really his fault. It's more the fault of like, the booking around him, like having him wrestle like MVP with R-Truth and having him wrestle like Dolph Ziggler. Like, who gives a fuck? That brings me to another point. Dolph Ziggler, motherfuckers. Dolph Ziggler, right? Last I checked, this guy was on SmackDown tag teaming with Bobby Roode, failing at that, being a jobber tag team with Bobby Roode, and then he went to have one of the most meaningless feuds of all time with Otis at WrestleMania, where he lost. All of a sudden, he's transferred to Raw, and he's like, I'm number one contender. Whoa, fam. What the fuck are you talking about? When the fuck did you become number one contender? Why does Dolph Ziggler deserve a title shot? This has CM Punk written all over it. Drew McIntyre's reign is one of the worst ones since CM Punk. And again, it's not his fault. Just like for a long time, people can say all they want. But CM Punk's title reign being a huge flop is not only his fault, right? He just didn't defend it against main eventers. The main eventers were busy wrestling each other, right? A lot of people talk about the best time in SmackDown, right? They talk about it in the context of Paul Heyman really understands wrestling. They're like, oh, the SmackDown 6 stole the show. The SmackDown 6 were like mid-carders, all right? All of them at the time were mid-carders. Benoit and Angle. Angle was the only one you could argue was not a mid-carder. But even at that point, he was kind of like a mid-carder, right? All the other ones were mid-card or lower, right? They were all lower mid-card guys, which became mid-card guys just by virtue of there was no one else there, right? Benoit and Eddie Guerrero ended up feuding for the U.S. title, you know what I mean? Los Guerreros were tag champions. Like, all that was like a tag team feud. You know what I'm saying? So, none of those guys were stars, right? The real stars were Brock Lesnar, and that's it. And then you had Undertaker and Big Show, who were there like wrestling Brock Lesnar under the premise of they might one day beat him. But the clear star there was Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar versus A-Train was more entertaining than Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero at that time, motherfucks. At that time, cucks. You understand what I'm saying? So, that's kind of the same problems we have now. Everyone's a mid-carder, right? And there's only like, you might make the argument that Rollins is a main eventer, and you might make the argument, not make, Rey Mysterio is a main eventer, right? Even if he jobs, he's still a main eventer. But the amount of injuries that are plaguing these pseudo-main eventers, like Samoa Joe, these other jabrones, right? Like, you took Finn Balor out, you know? He wasn't a main eventer, but he was closer to being a main event than Dolph Ziggler, you know what I mean? And maybe you can argue AJ Styles is a main eventer. Maybe you can argue that. Like, at any given point, AJ Styles could challenge for the world title. But so can fucking Nakamura. So, the real main eventers are just very low in number and also, let's be honest, in quality, right? Randy Orton is now the only bona fide main eventer. And Mr. Money in the Bank, which I believe can challenge either Drew or Braun, is Otis. You know what I'm saying? Otis, who I haven't seen on TV or read about in weeks, Otis is Mr. Money in the Bank. Like, this has to be, like, one of the worst years in wrestling in terms of booking, right? And again, you want to attribute it to coronavirus, but you really can't, because other places like TNA or Impact Wrestling, whatever the fuck they want to call themselves now, they're doing pretty good, right? They're putting on interesting matches. They're putting on good matches with shitty wrestlers. WWE has some great wrestlers, and they're putting on shitty matches. I don't know if anyone had the displeasure of watching NXT. I couldn't even review it last week. I couldn't even fully appreciate it because one of the matches was Oney Lorcan versus Timothy Thatcher. And it was this boring ass MMA type fight, right? It was like the Samoa Joe Kurt Angle one they did back in the day. Where it was like, dude, this is not MMA. I don't give a fuck if Oney Lorcan can beat Timothy Thatcher. If I wanted to watch MMA, I'd watch UFC. Like people doing it for real. You know? So they're having this boring ass leg lock type of wrestling match, right? Which was shitty compared to the match that Timothy Thatcher had with Matt Riddle, right? And this is what wrestling is now. It's just boring ass matches, you know, with no suspense, no surprises, predictable outcomes, and people like Dolph Ziggler and Otis going from the undercard to now being in the main event to some capacity. What the hell is this, motherfucks? Now, I personally am okay with Otis holding the Money in the Bank if this is the beginning of a serious Otis push. Now, I'm not saying Otis deserves a push. He does not. However, he is a new guy. He is a fresh face. So maybe he's the one they chose, right? More likely than not, he's the comedy guy that's going to lose and become a jobber really soon. And it will be a waste of a Money in the Bank to have Otis win. But who else do you have, right? Who else can you give the Money in the Bank to? Like, I would have given it to Rey Mysterio. But people are like, oh, give it to Buddy Murphy. Get the fuck out of here, man. You know what I'm saying? When I watch Raw, I watched a little bit last night. I couldn't finish it, to be honest. I started watching it. It's like Andrade and Angel Garza are now main guys. Like they're there every week. What about Kevin Owens? What about Sami Zayn? I get it, they're from Canada, but Kevin Owens has been around. You know, have him have a serious gimmick. You know, have him turn heel or something. Do something, man. Drew McIntyre as a champion wrestling Dolph Ziggler and MVP is a waste. The only good thing that's happening right now in wrestling in Raw is the MVP Shelton Benjamin Lashley trio, right? If they just give Lashley a push, that's good, motherfucks. That's all we need. Give Lashley a push, and we're good to go. That's the only thing that makes sense now. Or have Randy Orton beat Drew McIntyre, and the belt will finally mean something again. It is incredibly important that the champion that holds the belt is a credible champion. Drew McIntyre is not a credible champion because in his Raw career, he has beaten no one of value, right? He became champion, he beat Brock Lesnar, that's it. He beat in like a shitty match, in one of the worst WrestleMania main events of all time, right? He just hit 5 Claymores or whatever after kicking out of an F5 and won. You know, that's how easy it is to beat Brock Lesnar. You just kick him in the head 5 times. Whatever, it is what it is, right? That match was uneventful. His match with Big Show, I didn't like because Big Show should have beaten him, in my opinion. And then there's other matches that he's had that have been shit. Braun Strowman, same thing. They don't even have matches anymore, man. I read an article on WWE.com, and it was top 10 matches of the year thus far. And the number 1 was the Boneyard match. And the justification of it was, now that cinematic wrestling is becoming more and more common. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is an article. You can't break kayfabe like that. In the world of WWE, there shouldn't be a thing called cinematic wrestling, right? That's something that the nerds on the internet can talk about. But you don't hear Michael Cole say, and now it's time for a cinematic wrestling match. You know what I mean? They just have the match, right? They just present it as if it's just another match, you know? And they say oh, it's bizarre, and some horseshit like that. So this article accepts the fact that cinematic matches are now a thing. And I know a lot of people like them because they think it adds variety. And I agree, it does add variety. I just don't think it adds the good variety, motherfuckers. It doesn't add the good variety. It's just why the fuck would I want to see Undertaker acting? I don't want to see that shit. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm retired, dog. So anyways, that's kind of the problem. Like, the main problem is, where is Otis? You know, where is, like, someone that should be at the same level as the champions in terms of booking, right? Like, when Edge was Money in the Bank winner, he was booked strong as shit. He was booked as, like, this guy will invariably be the next WWE champion. Instead of all this, we have Otis somewhere doing nothing, like taking pictures on Instagram with Tucker, golfing or doing some weird shit, right? Then we have Drew McIntyre, absolutely stale, you know, since the Royal Rumble, right? Everything has gone to shit, motherfuckers. It's gone to shit. So what else can we look at to make ourselves feel better about wrestling? It sure as shit ain't AEW. I mean, the main event is like Swagger and Jericho versus two people that I forgot about. I don't remember who they fought. I think it was either Best Friends or Jurassic Express. I don't know. I don't care. They're the same, you know? So what the fuck do we have to look forward to? The answer, unfortunately, appears to be Impact Wrestling. Now, I haven't watched whatever the fuck the show is called. Is it still called Impact? Like Impact Wrestling and the show is called Impact? I guess it's possible. I don't know. I haven't watched the shows yet, but I saw the highlights of the pay-per-view, and it seemed like it was fucking awesome. One of the matches was Moose versus Tommy Dreamer for the fake, like, TNA title, basically. You know? That was awesome, like, from the highlights. It looked cool as shit. Like, Tommy Dreamer is not, like, in the best shape of his life, obviously, but he's taking bumps. Moose speared him and won. It was legit. They showed, like, the Cruiserweight title match, and I actually enjoyed it. I mean, like, that Willie Mack guy, I like him, you know? I didn't think the other guy should have won, but it is what it is. The guy has, like, he's like a Jay Lethal. He has, like, the same finisher, basically. It's like a springboard cutter instead of, like, a handspring cutter, but who gives a fuck, right? So, I don't like him that much. But Willie Mack was cool. That match seemed nice, right? In the main event, Eric Young comes back, which actually makes sense because he is, like, quote-unquote, a legend in TNA, right? He does this sick-ass pile driver on Rich Swann, does the Edge of Insanity, or the Young Blood neck breaker, whatever you want to call it, and then destroys Rich Swann's leg with a chair. Boom! Setting up a story, right? Just like that. Rich Swann, when he comes back, is going to go after Eric Young. You know what I'm saying? Like, Eric Young, in the meantime, is going to go back to being crazy-ass Eric Young, who just likes to destroy people, who just likes to, like, hurt people, you know? That's cool. That already is a character. The world-class maniac, Eric Young. I never thought I'd see the day when the world-class maniac, Eric Young, is one of the only characters we have on TV. And I mean like a real character. Like, why is Eric Young different from, I don't know, name another heel in TNA? He's different because, unlike the other heel, Eric Young wants to hurt you, right? Wants to prove himself, and doesn't care if your career ends tomorrow. That's why it's interesting. Whereas if you look at, I don't know, Otis, right, and compare him to R-Truth, what's the difference in their characters? They're both two goofs that dance. You know, at the end of the day, fundamentally, they're two guys who just dance, except Otis dances like a fat guy, and R-Truth dances like a hip black guy, right? They're, like, R-Truth should be a champion, in my opinion, but that's not here or there, motherfucks. You know, they have all these people who have talent, and instead of booking them with gimmicks and characters, you're forced to go and re-sign MVP so he can actually add some character to your bullshit show, because Drew McIntyre ain't getting it done, motherfucks. He ain't getting it done. He has no gimmick. He's just a big guy. Now, he's good by virtue of the fact that he's a big guy. He's a strong guy. He's got good moves. But he needs to be booked better. You understand me? Braun Strowman, same thing. Not as talented as Drew. Not as good as Drew. Not as handsome as Drew. Not as masculine as Drew. Not as anything as Drew, basically. But nonetheless, a champion who is booked the same way. Oh, Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss showed up in like a dream sequence. So Braun Strowman just dragged into the swamp. Did they explain that? I should go read the SmackDown results. Did they explain what the fuck happened to Braun Strowman? Like, if he comes back, what happened? You know, what happened in the swamp? Did someone said cut and the film ended and now we have to pretend it didn't happen? Same thing with AJ Styles getting buried. This is retarded, man. You know, they need to focus on actual good booking. And TNA seems to be doing that. They're using this as a hard reset. It's almost like, yo, we fucked up with Tessa Blanchard because she quit on our ass. Right? So it's time to bring things back a little bit. Right? And have some talented wrestlers like that Ace Austin guy. I like that guy. I mean, I haven't seen any, like, full matches with him, but I've seen some highlights, and this guy's got awesome moves. You know, he looks goofy and shit, but whatever. That's like his thing. It's like his shtick, right? he looks goofy because he's like this arrogant, apparently he likes cards. Ace Austin, The Fold, or whatever, right? You have Madman Fulton, who is awesome. I love Madman Fulton. He's one of the big guys that actually has presence. He has that stupid hair. He's like a better Lance Archer, right? Madman Fulton. I've seen him, some of the matches that he's been doing, some of the matches with OVE, which was awesome, right? It was sick, man. Like, OVE was sick. That's what we need. They have Sami Callihan, right? He's like a Kevin Owens now because he's fat, right? And he wants to hurt you. And he has like a hacker gimmick. So whatever, it is what it is. At least it's a gimmick, you know what I'm saying? Then you have Eddie Edwards, who also has gained weight, apparently. I don't really give a shit about him. It is what it is, right? But he's there. He puts on good matches. And he's just a face champion. And his goal is to bring prestige to the title, right? By actually holding on to it and being a good champion. And he's being harassed by Eric Young and other people who also want it. There's already a structure being put in place, motherfucks. In AEW, in TNA, AEW, in WWE, Raw and SmackDown, and NXT, there is no structure. It's just some random haphazard shit. Haphazard shit. All of a sudden, like, Killer Cross comes out, makes an angry face, leaves a fucking sand dial, whatever, what do they call it? Sand dials? Fucking hourglass. Leaves an hourglass there. Adam Cole gets upset. The next thing, Adam Cole comes out and says, I don't want to fight you, kid. You're not good enough yet. Adam Cole then loses the title to Keith Lee, who now is in a feud with Killer Cross. What the fuck is happening? I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, Keith Lee's a double champ and relinquishes a title that he just won like 2 months ago. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, he should have relinquished it because there's no point in him being double champion. But you understand what I'm saying? The booking is shit. It would have been better if, let's say, Adam Cole screws him out of like the US title. Someone else wins it, and then he beats Adam Cole. But that's neither here nor there, motherfuckers. The point I'm trying to make is that there is no structure. In NXT, this is justifiable. It's justifiable to have no structure in NXT because of 2 reasons. 1, historically, there's been very little structure in NXT. And 2, because NXT wrestlers tend to move up to SmackDown or Raw at varying rates, right? So there's no point in having like an actual like structure in NXT. Like, I don't even think they need the mid-card title or the women's title. Just have the women fight for nothing, basically. And then eventually they just move to the main roster. You need one champion just to have a champion. Just to be like, oh, is there a reason to even be here? That's about it. You don't need the tag team champions either. So that's what I'm saying, motherfucks. They could get away with it. Raw and SmackDown can't. All of a sudden, Dolph Ziggler's the number 1 contender. What the fuck? Who thought of this? Who's the retard that said, how about we have him fight Dolph Ziggler? Have him wrestle Lashley again. Or have him wrestle like some gimmicky type shit. Like at least Braun Strowman versus Miz and Morrison was cool. Because it's Braun Strowman versus Miz and Morrison. It's like a 2-on-1 situation. So like, you understand what I'm saying, motherfuckers. Wrestling is shit right now. It's garbage, right? Garbage. So I guess I have to look forward to like watching New Japan or something. Or maybe TNA to actually get some good wrestling because this is unbearable, man. Like even when I don't watch Raw and stuff, I tend to watch the pay-per-views, But I can't even watch them anymore. Like, I don't give a fuck about Dolph Ziggler versus Drew McIntyre or Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt in like a swamp ass match. I don't give a fuck. Oh, look, Alexa Bliss showed up. She might be Sister Abigail. I don't give a fuck about Sister Abigail. Fuck Sister Abigail. What do you think of that, motherfuckers? Also, where the fuck is Otis, bitch?